guys.
Hey,
There she is.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Okay, I want to, well, first I want to remind all of our people, like, if you don't have the book, get it. Because, like, one of the things I want to talk about, we didn't cover, or you guys didn't cover in the episode, because there's so much. And so, if you don't have the book, go get it. So the part, Kurt, where, so the brain can do a lot of hard things for a long time as long as it doesn't have to do it by itself. Mm-hmm. And then PEP, when you talked about Orange Theory and going to the gym versus being in the same room with a bunch of people that are on the same mission.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was like, we can do it if we're in it together. And so, like, Kurt, you talk about our coping skills. Like, so when we're faced with a situation to persevere, where we can persevere, we oftentimes go to our coping mechanisms. Mm-hmm. And then I think we've talked about shame. So if we start to think about our coping mechanisms, you going to say something, Kurt?
No.
Oh. If we go to our
eventually.
I'm hoping. If we go to our coping mechanisms, we can be flooded. I can be flooded with shame and be like, look at me trying to do this. This is hardly persevering.
Right.
But if we can be curious, then, like, Kurt, you just naming the idea that we go to coping mechanisms, it's like, oh, look at that. That is my go-to.
Yeah.
And then we rob ourselves of this lamenting. It's not ignoring our grief and ignoring our anger. It's, we get to lament. It is part of it.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm just aware of this this thing about grief really has struck me as part of perseverance, because Pep, the Orange Theory example, is we're going to get a lot of mileage out of that, no pun intended. But endurance athletes talk a lot about suffering. Mm-hmm. And something about them, something within them, has them wanting to persevere. And, I think about, there was a time in my life where I was, riding a road bike for quite a bit. And so interested in the different tours that are going everywhere. And these tours are all made up of teams. These, you've got multiple different teams, and each of those teams have, they might have a particular rider, a particular cyclist who's their number one cyclist, but the team is doing what they can to help propel the cyclist forward. But so often you're like, well, gosh, the cyclist is just like they're just having to do the thing, and like you come to discover, well, actually, no, the cyclist, their lead, the lead cyclist in whatever team might be in the race. That cyclist is depending heavily on the presence of others who are with him, and not just to draft and all those kinds of things, but it's the very awareness of presence that enables them to persevere in a particular direction. And that's the other thing. It's like you could have people standing around in the gym. You could have people next to you who are doing all kinds of other exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you have someone who's doing the same exercise, moving in the same direction, and you can both see that like you're suffering.
Yeah, and what's interesting, the part of that too is, I could be next to someone who we have the same time goal, we have both, but we're pushing at our own. Mm-hmm. We're pushing ourselves to our own limit, right? It's not like the person next to me is doing the same speeds and everything that I'm doing. But we're encouraging one another to do our very best at, at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I really appreciate that, Amy. This notion of continuing to know that we are tethered and connected to others. And, it's funny. I find this to be true in a number of different domains of my life, like persevering in the work that I do, persevering here in the work that we do here with this podcast. I think persevering in marriage, and I persevere in my marriage not just because I'm connected to Phyllis, to whom I'm deeply connected, but also because as a couple, we're deeply connected to other couples who are also persevering, who know that marriage requires work. It's a beautiful thing, and it requires effort. And I'm, as we each are, we're tethered to other people, like in my work area. Right, I talk about the joy that has been mine in the last 4 years since I've transferred ownership, and what a joy it has been to work with my colleague Courtney, who's now the owner, and the role that has played. But it has required me to figure out where do I belong, where do I fit in now that I don't own the practice, and all those kinds of things. And she has been so gracious in our ongoing conversation about the role that I play, so that I'm not, I continue to feel tethered. I feel tethered to her, I feel tethered to the other people in the practice, as a way to continue to persevere while I'm trying to figure out my role as evolving and emerging in this practice that I continue to love being part of. And so we have all kinds of, and then to persevere in the face of things that are happening in our lives that we wish weren't happening.
Right.
Right. I mean, we've all three named to each other. We've named experiences that have happened within the last number of months that are unpleasant, and that and that involve people, real people that we're having to, like, how do I respond? Like, something's happened, and I have all these feelings that are hard and unpleasant, and I've been hurt. I'm angry. I'm this. I'm that. I'm all these. And how do I persevere as the person that I want to become? I can't do this without having a place to come and name these things. And this is one space for me with the two of you to come and say, this happened to me. And we process this. It happens on Tuesday mornings for me with the guys that I'm with. It happens, of course, with my wife but there is a sense in which evil's capacity to want to have me get off the treadmill,
Right.
to stop persevering, it is like barking in my ear almost with every step. And especially, as you said, Pepper, the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I love the application of just naming areas that we have the opportunity to persevere.
Yeah. What about that? What about that?
Well, because
is helpful?
it's like a baby step, because it's just acknowledging that there are areas that are hard for us.
Yeah.
And so it's not even like, okay, name them, persevere, do all the things. It's like, oh, yeah, I do have areas. Because we can go through our day thinking we're aware of it. Our bodies are aware of it. But it just, the simplicity of just naming them.
Right. Well, and I know there's a part of me that feels embarrassed. That feels slightly embarrassed or ashamed that there is an area that within which I have to persevere. Like, because it reveals I don't want to do this. This is hard for me to do. It's an area where I don't have all my ducks lined up in a row. It reveals my, how long I yet have to go. All of that I can hear, that unclean spirit talking to me and just pointing like, gosh, you really do not have your stuff together, do you? And that's what everybody's thinking. That's what everybody's aware of. So, just the very fact that you persevere, like we were saying earlier, Pat, like the very fact that I'm staying on the treadmill for this long only reminds me of how hard it is for me to be on the treadmill.
Right.
And it's in those moments where it's helpful to bring you two to mind, to bring the people in our lives, in the confessional communities. We hear this all the time. That the whole notion of I was in this place that was really difficult, and I saw each of you in the room where you were standing,
You were
coming for me. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Grateful to be doing it with you guys.
Indeed.
Right on.
Indeed.
Right on.
It's a great morning.
It is.
We should do it
Good to be
more
with
often.
you. We should do it more often. All
Like
right
next
then.
week.
All right.
Next week.
I love you guys.
Right. Love you guys.
See you soon. Love you.